Join us as we visit the Andalusian port city of Malaga. We'll take a short walking tour and then visit the Picasso Museum. We started from the Sevilla train station and we thought it'd be a fairly short ride, just maybe an hour or so to Malaga. However, because of Ronda and the mountains in between, you have to go through Cordoba to get there, and it's about 3 hours. The day was a bit cloudy, but along the way we were treated to views of vast olive groves throughout the countryside. We arrived in Malaga mid-afternoon, but our cruise ship wasn't available for boarding until 6 o'clock. So we stowed our bags in the train station and decided to take the hop-on, hop-off tour of Malaga. And we started right along the seafront. And even though this is April, the weather was absolutely gorgeous. And the beaches looked very inviting, and I'm sure they're wonderful during the summer months. Our next stop was around the corner to the Tabacalera, which was turned into a business school, much the same as the university in Seville. We next turn and go up a beautiful tree-lined street called the Park of Malaga. We go right in front of City Hall, which we'll come back to on our walking tour. As we turn and go by City Hall, we can look over our shoulders at the Alcazaba, which is an 11th century Moorish citadel. As we turn the corner and head up the marina, we see the cube over the Centre Pompidou Malaga, which is the only extension of the Pompidou Center outside of France and contains contemporary art. We next drive around the La Farola lighthouse. It is a bit different because it is feminine, and all other lighthouses in Spain are called El Faro. The lighthouse was built in 1816 and is still functional today. As we drive along the marina, it looks pretty deserted, and I'd like to point out that this is actually the upper level, and there are many restaurants and shops in the lower level right by the water. We turn away from the water at the Genealogica, which is a laboratory for analyzing genetics. Next, we go by the Fountain of the Three Graces, and you can see in the background the steps leading up to Castillo de Gibralfaro. Across from the fountain, we see Malaga's bull ring, but it's very, very difficult to see because it's behind all these trees. Now we start the steep climb up the hill to the Castillo de Gibralfaro, which was built to protect the Alcázar down below. As you can see, the views are absolutely stupendous, but it was a bit treacherous going up these narrow roads on a double-decker bus. The view from the top was stupendous, and we tried looking for our cruise ship, but it's too far away. We continued the climb to the top to the Castillo itself. Unfortunately, we didn't get a good look at it, and even though it was a hop-on, hop-off bus, we did not hop off. Back down in the city, we went through a tunnel that goes underneath the Alcázar. Coming out of the tunnel, you get a look up at the steep pathway that leads up to the Castillo, if you're so inclined to walk all that. Once again, we go around the Fountain of the Three Graces. We finish up the tour by driving through a new part of town and then off to the train station, because now it's time to grab a taxi and head to the port to find our ship. Finding our ship turned out to be more of a challenge than we thought, because we had no idea where it was, so we just asked the taxi to drive out to the wharf, and we stopped at the first ship we saw. Well, this isn't it. It's the Carnival Pride. So we jump back in the taxi and head out to the end of the wharf where nothing else was parked, and there was our ship. It was a very long day from Seville to here, and so it was time to board the ship, grab some dinner, and retire to our cabin. Bright and early the next day, it was time to board the tour bus and head into town for a walking tour. We started our walk at the Neo-Baroque City Hall that was built in 1919, and we had seen it earlier on the Hop On Hop Off bus tour. It's a beautiful building, but we were also struck by the tree-lined streets that surrounded the building. We left City Hall and started a walk down a beautiful tree-lined street towards the University of Malaga. The thing that struck us is this was April, and the trees were fully leafed out, lots of palm trees, and it was just gorgeous. We turned off the street at the university and headed into the historic part of the city, heading towards the fortifications in the heart of the city. There's one important thing you should know is that behind the university down that street, there are elevators that take you up to the fortifications, so you don't actually have to walk. We stopped for a moment in front of the Fine Arts Museum of Malaga and got a good look at the stairs that go up. And remember I told you about the elevator. We next headed over to the Cathedral Gardens, which were behind the cathedral but gave us some terrific views of the cathedral itself from the back. From the gardens, we walked around to the front of the cathedral to the Plaza del Bispo, which was very, very beautiful. In the plaza itself was a building that had a colorful Spanish Baroque facade and contained religious art exhibitions. The cathedral itself is an iconic national landmark with a 16th century Baroque facade and a museum inside. Unfortunately, we did not have time to go in. From the cathedral, we wandered over to the main shopping district, which is a pedestrian-only zone. The streets are paved in marble. We were particularly struck by how clean it was. We next headed up to the Plaza de la Constitución. It has been a major town square since the time of the Reconquista. It has lots of restaurants and very nice places to hang out. We next head over to the Picasso Museum and wait with our newfound friends from the ship to get into the museum itself. The museum itself is housed in the Palacio de Buena Vista, which is a 16th century building that was set aside by the Andalusian government. Looking up, you can see some extraordinary woodwork on the second floor ceiling. We were fortunate to have a very knowledgeable tour guide conduct us through the museum, and it was nice in spite of all the people that were there. The museum showcases the versatility and creative genius of Picasso, who was born in Malaga in 1881. The collection has over 200 works that span Picasso's career and demonstrates his skill across a variety of mediums, including paintings, sculptures, ceramics, drawings, and graphic works. The collection includes more than 200 of his works in these variety of styles, and as you walk through, it charts each stage in his development as an artist with a chronological display of his works. There are 2 separate galleries that show works on paper, and one room is devoted to sculpture and ceramics. If you do visit the galleries, I highly recommend you try to get a guided tour, because the knowledge of what he was doing and what he was thinking is so valuable, and our guide was absolutely wonderful and gave us far more insight into Picasso than I could ever imagine. So sit back and relax and enjoy the rest of the artwork. Sadly, it's time to end our tour at the Roman Theater, which dates back to the 1st century AD, and Malaga at that time was known as Malaga and under Roman rule. It was used for public performances for many centuries and was repurposed in the Moorish era when the materials from the theater were used to construct the citadel. Well, that's it for Malaga. It's time to head back to the ship and set sail out of the beautiful port of Malaga. We do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to subscribe, and there are some videos coming up that you may be interested in.